This is Greg Beast here. As promised on Twitter and Instagram, I have created a Beast Lab that is dedicated to the wing play, programming, and game planning that I used with my Faceoff unit with the Redwoods this summer. So we're going to go over a few different caveats of that, as well as the reasoning behind what we used and the teams, their styles of Faceoff guy and wing play that we used against them. So the first thing to understand is the differences in NCAA/high school right now and the PLL rules. Everyone complains all the time about how one face-off guy can change the course of an entire game and has too much sway over that. So everyone always focuses on the rules right here. Well, what the PLL did was we brought the wings a yard closer on either side. So if you're complaining all the time about one person having a dominant effect on a game, why not make it more of a 3-on-3 by bringing the wings in? So that's exactly what we did. So I just want to go over that real quick. If you want to look at the very detailed look at the differences of the PLL rules this summer compared to that of other pro leagues and the NCAA, then you can go on my YouTube channel right here, go on the Beast Lab playlist, and you'll find that. I dropped that earlier this spring. Now, something that you're going to want to look at real quick, okay, just so I understand. The red lines represent the wing lines and the setup of NCAA and high school ball right now. So current NCAA and high school ball, the ball is lined up in the middle of the sticks, okay? So these two rectangles represent how our heads line up. Right now, the term is called top to stop. So the very top of the head lines up to the opponent's ball stop. So it's not quite square. If it is lined up square, that's incorrect. It should be a little bit off center, okay? The idea behind that was to keep the ball from going right in the throat, to make it a little bit more even for players. The problem is the ball goes down second by the official. Sometimes it goes a little bit closer to one guy's side. Sometimes it goes a little bit closer to the other. So right now, just keep that in mind. That's how it's lined up in high school and in college. The wing lines are all the way out here, okay? Standard field dimensions. Now, the PLL rules are different, slightly different, right? So we moved the heads so that the ball is now at the very top of the heads, basically where your shooting strings are. It's about 2.5 inches down from the very top of the scoop. This means that the floppy part of the heads are meeting the ball on impact, which meant for a very quick face-off, the ball comes out. One guy either beats the other cleanly on the clamp and is able to rip it out, or they meet at the floppy part of the plastic, and the guy who's able to rotate around the ball and pull it out first won. It brought back rakes. It gave standing neutral grip guys a better shot. The other thing is the ball was down first. So the stencil marks on the PLL field, they had a series of 3 or 4 stencil marks, and the players were supposed to line the top of their heads up to the top of the line where the referee had their foot already, lined right up against the foot. The ball's already on a mark, so it's always consistently in the center in the exact same spot every time. And it took 2 or 3 seconds to line up for a face-off, no readjustments, and we were out. So it was way faster, way simpler, way easier. And then the other part of this is if you have a dominant face-off guy, the wing lines are now a yard closer. So you're taking guys who are at the very top of their game, like the John Sexton, Brian Carolinus, Joel Whites of the world, and you're putting them a yard closer to the face-off action. And I saw games where guys would win every single clamp. We had one game at the end of the season where I won every single clamp in a game, and we still didn't even hit 60%. Okay, and it's because these guys are on top of you in 2 seconds. Now you combine that with the fact that the 10 yards out of the middle of the field is gone on a shorter PLL field now. So now, even if you pop it forward, you have less distance to be able to scoop and then run away from pressure because you're right on top of the arc now. So those are things to just remember, okay? It is way easier to set up a 3-on-3 game plan to stop a dominant face-off man clamp-wise in this style, in the PLL style, than right now in the high school and NCAA levels. And that's why we are so sure that eventually you have to go to these rules because it's going to make the game faster, make it easier, etc. So anyway, I won't get on the soapbox about that, but I'm just letting you guys know that that's the difference. So when I go over my game planning from the Redwood standpoint, I want you to understand why these things worked, and I will try my best to explain what will work better and worse based on which rules, okay? So there's part 1. So as I said, I'm basically going to go over our 2 playoff games leading up to the championship because I feel like they were such contrasting styles that it'll help. And then I'll go through a full volume at a later date in a different Beast Lab of different styles altogether. So first, playoff opponent 1 had 2 super athletic face-off guys that get to their feet in an instant. And after playing against them and knowing them very well, I understood that going forward was not going to be the look, because the last time I had played against this team, I won the majority of the clamps. However, we barely broke 50% because they were so athletic, so young at getting on top of me if I tried to pull the ball out. I knew a defensive draw wasn't going to work because it's too slow compared to the face-off guys I'm going against. And I knew that going forward was going to be basically a 50-50 shot because they're getting so good at getting to their feet. The other thing is, one of the guys I was going against, one of my opponents, was very good at raking off a knee to throw me for a loop. So I knew that the game plan for me, technique-wise, was to stay on a knee, get my helmet over the top of the ball immediately, punch down, and be able to exit very quickly. But I had to be able to put my body between my opponent and the ball quickly. So how do we do that? Now, our standard base setup throughout my career has generally been, we want the shorty deep on the pull side. The pull side is the left side. That's where you pull the ball to. That's why we call it that, or the draw side. So the shorty would always be deep here, creating a 2-on-1 decision for the LSM. If I won it forward, the LSM, if the LSM came down here, I would win it forward. If the LSM crept up here, I would use the TTL to throw the ball to my shorty. Now, the one problem is the PLL field is a little bit shorter. So guys who throw the ball through their legs, try to get it out to their wings a lot, you saw it a lot of times, they would accidentally put it into the arc, and it would be a 50-50 toss-up. In the playoffs, I didn't want to take chances. I wanted to win every clamp I could and make sure it was a clean face-off win. So what I decided to do was I decided to position everyone on this half of the field in a specific manner to make sure that this was the cleanest area in the field. 5 to 10 yards to my left behind me. And I would use what's called a TTL, through the legs. Okay, now, obviously, that's old school. Kids don't use it nearly as much as they should, but it's one of the best, easiest, cleanest exits you can use. So since nobody else really does that in the PLL, I decided to utilize that to the best of my ability. So what did we do? We took the shorty and we told him we want you to stay up at the midfield. So the shorty stayed at the midfield. On the whistle, he would break in 5 yards and he would hold. Now, you can do that if you believe you're going to win the majority of the clamps. We felt very strongly that we were going to win the majority of the clamps, so that's how we were able to game plan this way. Okay, so that's just something to remember. So basically, we were going to stay on the midline. We were going to pop the ball. I was going to clamp, put the ball through my legs, turn to my left shoulder, box my opponent out, get my step, and then scoop and exit. Okay, now, the LSM's job on the right side, just in case they broke one forward on us, was to cut in. Okay, and then he was going to take the point guy. He wasn't going to try to stop the break because their face-off guy, both of them, very capable ball handlers, very athletic, and we didn't want to take a chance on me trying to chase them down and worry about that. Instead, we wanted to get in so the point defender can step up and stop ball. Now, here's something to remember. Any elite level game planning for a face-off is not about the face-off guy. It's not about where the wings go. It's about everybody, okay? Exit strategies, both offensively and defensively. So this is the way it was supposed to work. Greg wins the ball through his legs. Ball comes here, 5 to 10 yards on an angle, okay? And we're going right there. Now, the shorty stays up top, and the shorty had the audible call. The audible call was important. If I'm clean and I'm wide open, I run onto the ball and I scoop. If, and it happened one time, the LSM decides to go rogue and on the whistle busts down here, we yell out a goose call. So Pat Harbison on my wing, yelled goose, 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 and I didn't even look. I just scooped, threw it over my head, and it went right to Harvey, who was standing right here, and we got a 4-on-3 easy break out of it, and they did not do that again because they did not want to give up that break. They had no option. Either they give up the break and they go for the ball, which they're probably going to be late to anyway, or they hang tight. So they were hanging tight after that. Now, this is the other important part. The LSM, once he notices I don't get beat, he hangs back too. Okay, he's going to hang right here. This is where the fun part comes in. So right here, we have our goalie and we have our defensive triangle. They have to know what's going to happen on a face-off or else everybody's lost, okay? Or else I'm going to turn the ball over. So we have one defender get as wide as humanly possible. We have the goalie drops back to the end line. We have the other defender go as wide as possible. And this defender's job is to streak straight here, okay? Now, I pick the ball up. I'm looking directly at this first option, which is the defender. The second option, if the attackman goes with him, is to put it to the goalie. If I absolutely have to, and I shouldn't have to, I can throw it over. but the easier option is to throw it right here on a streaking defender, which would create a 4-on-3. So now you've taken a very defensive posture and you've given yourself 2 easy 4-on-3 looks. So if this LSM cuts down here, we get the goose call, which means we throw it over top, and that's an easy 4-on-3 break. If the streak is wide open and this attackman happens to be stuck or tries to guard me instead of taking the defender who's streaking, I can just toss it right to him and he can go straight up field. That would usually be glaze. Okay, so by doing this, not only did we hammer this over and over and over again to the tune, I think to the tune of 10 to 12 ground balls I had. Okay, this was the easy win. But when I did decide to go forward, these guys were completely lulled to sleep. So when we did go forward and break one, this was wide open 4-on-3 dunk. Okay, so I know it's kind of like football. Usually you run in order to set up the throw. What we kind of did was we threw to set up the run and basically lulled them down, and then we went for it going forward, which is what naturally most guys do. They naturally try to push it forward and force the issue. In the PLL, you can't do that, or else the athletic face-off guys and the wing players are going to make you eat dirt. So that's why we stayed safe. It paid off, obviously. We got a couple points off of it, but we got a whole bunch of face-off wins out of it against very, very elite level competition. So this only works if not only the wings listen, but the offensive shorties who run the wing listen, the defenders and goalie all buy in, and the coaching staff and everyone bought in. So this was what we did. So we did this against athletic face-off guys that we know we're going to win a majority of the clamps against. Not 90%, but 60% maybe. So it's easy to game plan because it's kind of predictable. The other option we're going to go over next is the next game. It was a completely different style of face-off, okay? And that's what we're going to go over next. Okay, so in our second playoff game, we faced a completely different set of circumstances. We had a team that was known for scoring in transition, particularly 2 bombs. We also knew that their face-off guy had, in my opinion, the fastest hands in the entire league. However, we believe very strongly that their exit strategy and their wing cohesion was not there. So our goal was to try to exploit that because we knew we weren't going to win the majority of the clamps. So I completely changed my stance. I went standing neutral grip, and my goal was to use a quick rake, a power rake, and a pinch and pop in order to throw my opponent off kilter so that once in a while I can get a quick one forward, okay? Or if I didn't win, I was able to stand up and affect the exit strategy because you still have to remember at the high school and college level, just like the PLL, supposed to be enforced, you get 1 step after you clamp. So after you clamp, you have to redirect the ball immediately within 1 step. That's supposed to be how it's officiated. Is it always officiated that way? Of course not, but that's the way it's supposed to be. That would make face-offs way faster and cleaner all around. However, so let's go over what we were doing. So standing up, I'm either going to try to pull my opponent to the left, or once he starts to think that and starts to dive over top of the ball or push down the line, that's when I make them pay by pushing in as well and then stealing the bottom side while I'm going pinch and pop. So the only way, I told my teammates, the only way that this is going to be a fast face-off win is if the ball flies out right here, okay? So we're either going here or nothing. So what we wanted to do was, because I'm standing, I know that I'm not going to get beat forward. So that takes away that option for them. And then we can basically just lock off and go hip to hip. Now, I don't like just going hip to hip as a standard way of facing off if you think you're going to win about half the clamps, because you've basically limited yourself. We want to create 2-on-1s whenever we can to make the ground ball advantage huge. If you're a team that just throws your face-off guy out there and you tell your wings just go hip to hip and match up, you've basically completely taken the field and cut it in half on yourself. And we'll go over that at a later date. But for right now, the style that we did, offensively, if we get it, it's going to fly out here. And we're going to go forward with it. If it doesn't, then we want to lock off. We want to let our man go a little bit in front of us so that we can check on his back hip. We don't want to sprint in here if our opponent wins the clamp, because then he's just going to fling it out and throw it overhead. So this is what I mean. For example, say Brian Karolounis is on the wing here, okay, with a shorty, and he beats the shorty in and stands. What most guys do, they run within 2 yards of the face-off guy and just stand, okay? If their face-off man had won a clamp, which he won about 75% of them, okay, he knows he can throw the ball out here anywhere, and the shorty will be behind the LSM, so they would have a huge advantage. And we did not want to give up that advantage. So what we wanted to do was make the face-off man feel like he was all alone on his wins. Is he going to win a couple clean that way? Yeah, of course. Is he going to get a fast break out of it? Absolutely not. And we did not want him throwing the ball to space, because he's good at that, so that a wing could run onto it and create a 4-on-3, especially with their poles. We didn't want them to slam down a two ball on us. So we stood up. We used a counter. We call it belly to helmet. It's on this playlist. Stand over top of your opponent. Your belly's lined up with his helmet. You stay low, and as soon as his right hand leaves the ground, that's when you come down and you lift or you check so that the ball comes loose. Once the ball comes loose, it's a one-on-one ground ball, and we were very confident if I had a one-on-one ground ball against an opponent who was on a knee or holding the stick moto grip, and I was standing going neutral grip, that I would have a huge advantage on it, and we ended up having a really big advantage that way. Meanwhile, we're not giving any outlets, so we're going right behind our opponent, giving him a couple inches in front of us. If the ball gets to him, we check and then steal it. If the ball goes over his head, we're there for the box out, and that's what we wanted. Out of that, we ended up with a couple scrums right here where we ended up taking the ball. I know John Sexton scooped one, brought it down, went this way, shot a two ball. We were +4 on face-offs. So when I was on the field, we were +4. We had 4 points and we gave up 0 off of face-offs. And it was beautiful because we were getting these mini transitions out of the fact that basically if the ball got loose, their face-off guy, no matter how hard he hustled, he was starting on his knee when the ball came out. So he couldn't actually catch up to us. So it was technically, for at least 2 or 3 steps, it was a 3-on-2 ground ball. And we were able to get numbers a few times in order to score. So, and even more importantly, we gave up no transition. They got a scrum where they got one on a 4-on-3 and it got saved. But other than that, against an opponent who is used to getting 4-on-3 breaks with super fast hands on the whistle, we were able to completely take that part of their game away, and it really helped us shut out their poles off of the face-off wings as well. So when you are going forward and you're telling your team, once again, all right, this is the idea. Create a strategy where everyone can kind of weigh on the fact that one particular thing is gonna happen, right? So for instance, it's like playing defense. If I completely run up on my opponent and I stand all the way on his right shoulder, I know for a fact he's going left, and so does my entire defense. So there's no guesswork involved. Our slides can be faster. Same thing here. Our game previous, we knew the ball was exiting this way, so everyone was prepared to sprint on the whistle. In this game, we knew the ball was exiting this way right on the whistle, so we were prepared. And if it didn't, everyone locked off because we knew that we were going to have ourselves a 3-on-3 ground ball. So that was the style. One game, I'm on a knee, driving my right hand and my throat into the ball so I can get over top of it and putting it through my legs. The next game, we completely change tact, and I go completely stand up the entire game, and it's all rake variations and loose ball variations to the front left. So that is what you can do when you have the PLL rules, because it's more of a true 3-on-3, even a 6-on-6 face-off, compared to how spread out the field is now, where you basically have 2 guys on an island, and one guy's going to be able to pump the other if he's elite. So thank you to the PLL rules for creating this creativity and giving us something to do. Now, would this work in a high school game? Yeah, 100%, but way more ways on the face-off guy being able to adapt to completely different situations. If you have a face-off guy that is used to winning 80% of his clamps on a knee all the time, he will not be able to do this stuff because he doesn't practice his stand-up. He's not a rake guy or a pinch and pop off of a stand-up. You have to be able to practice everything if you want to open up all of these options. I always tell guys, longevity at this position, clamp speed is the most overrated thing in face-offs, especially if the rules trend towards the PLL rules, which they totally should. Clamp speed is way overrated compared to game planning and experience. And if you have the ability to stand up or change your game plan or put the puzzle pieces where they need to be, the chess pieces where they need to be ahead of time, you could be a way better field general and a way more effective face-off guy. Our goal every game this season was to go over 50%, not to go 90% and then go 40% and then 30 and then 80. Our goal was to consistently give our team the knowledge that you're going to go over 50%, we're going to win the majority of these, and you're going to have steady possessions. And every single game, other than the one that I played with a torn hammy, we were over 50% every time. The entire unit was together. When we were healthy, we were great. And this is the rapport you need. So coaches out there, it's really important not just to study the face-off and help your face-off guys, but give them the leeway to be generals. Give them the knowledge to be generals. If they're coming to FOA events, Let them use that knowledge, because we go over this stuff at our FOA events and we give them this knowledge so that they can be option quarterbacks, not kickers, like Quint says. So give them that option to run this whole show. Now, that being said, it only works if you have continuity. So if you're using the same guys all the time on the wings, they will start to create that chemistry and they'll know what's going on and they'll trust each other. If you're just throwing a different guy out there all the time, it's never going to work. And it's never going to work if you're just changing face-off guys up every time you lose a couple in a row. What you want to do is create rapport. And there's only one way to do that, and that's through experience and working together. Okay, and like I said, the big piece here, defenders need to know where to break when they're supposed to. Attackmen need to know where to get when they're supposed to. So it's all synergistic. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue this series of wing play. Not just strategy that I've used, but I'm going to go all the way to the top, and we're going to start a series where I'm breaking down the wing play, exactly what their options are, and we're going to go through that series throughout this entire winter. Okay, so stay tuned for that on the Beast Lab, but I hope you enjoyed this little bit of series here on strategy.